I've been pondering the very unbelievable statement made by Barack Hussein Obama, voting's the best revenge. And I see 5 groups in the scope: capitalist, Christians, Caucasians, Americans, and men. Many people seem inspired by this get-even mentality, and President Obama appears to be the poster child. Some actively, aggressively, and knowingly pursue this agenda, while the average voter who relates to this agenda does so in response to underlying undefined feelings that trigger an emotional reaction. When speaking of revenge upon capitalists, it's important to know that Karl Marx lives on. He is alive and well as a slimy residue coating the minds of certain intellectuals, certain influential people who find Marxist thinking quite appealing. Marxism emphasizes that rich, successful business owners pursue personal gain at the expense and detriment of the poor, oppressed worker. And this is the core of our social ills. Surely there are abusive, greedy capitalists. But we are not to evaluate a system upon its abuses, but upon its proper, consistent application of its core principles. Stated briefly, capitalism emphasizes that ingenuity, ambitious enterprise, and hard work, after all, man is essentially a worker, by a private individual as opposed to a government agency, in a free market, can contribute to the production of goods, encouraging personal and national prosperity. Ingenuity, hard work, and responsible labor are consistent with God's design for human beings. Neo-Marxists, bent on revenge upon capitalists, would suggest that this arrangement produces oppression. Abuses of capitalism will produce oppression, and such abuses need correction. However, those who target capitalism for revenge emphasize and characterize the abuses and the departures as the essence of the system. As such, they view capitalism and capitalists as enemies. Instead of working toward correction, the entire system and the mean, oppressive, successful business owners benefiting from this system are demonized, and radical resistance becomes the agenda. The primal impulse to get even is a major emotional factor that comes into play with such a revenge agenda. Hate mongers, who label all opposition as hate mongers, know how to use such emotional factors as leverage to control people and advance their agenda. The Marxist approach toward fighting this wrong is revolution. The oppressed working class, the proletariat, must rise up and cast off the bonds of oppression. As not all revolutions consist of violent overthrow, the neo-Marxist approach is a subtle, strategic, largely manipulative, and underhanded revolution. Despite all the in-depth idealistic rhetoric offered by neo-Marxist thinkers, their goal is an entitlement society that relies on the government to provide its needs. The citizens of the nation become servants of the government in order to create goods and services for the government to provide to the citizens of the nation. This requires a large, controlling governmental structure that is characteristic of the socialist and communist systems. This creates subjects who are dependent upon the goods and services dispensed by government agencies under government control. If you look carefully, you can see this process unfolding before our eyes. All of this takes place under the guise of compassion, care for the needy, the poor, and the oppressed victims of a cruel and heartless bourgeoisie. But, as pursued by the president, it is motivated by revenge. Many who currently employ neo-Marxist views hope to gain power and control under the guise of compassion and concern for the poor, oppressed working class. Successful revenge against capitalism will result in the federal government controlling more societal structures to care for the masses by way of entitlements. caring for them poorly, I might add. Did someone say Obamacare? Many people will ask, why would anyone want to do this? It's because they are snakes in suits, manipulating and deceiving under the guise of care, concern, and compassion, simply to satisfy their own personal hunger for power, fame, money, or as misguided or malicious servants of an ideology. Both departures from a proper approach toward capitalism and the activities of those currently seeking revenge on capitalists spring from the same source: corruption. Addressing corruption as the essential problem behind our social ills could produce positive strides forward. It is very difficult to identify corruption as such in a morally relativistic culture in which corruption serves one's purpose. Unless there is an active effort to prevent this slide into socialist society, with its accompanied loss of liberty and growing government control, unless we take heed, keep on the alert, we can expect that we and our children will soon live in a radically transformed nation. This transformation is underway while many, including the Christian community, are fast asleep, sadly unaware and completely distracted and entangled by the cares of this life. Numb from pursuit of personal happiness, comfort, and convenience, entertaining ourselves to death, we allow the trickery of men and the craftiness of deceitful scheming to work its magic as our liberty disappears. Lack of intelligent awareness has manifested itself in the outcome of our most recent presidential election. Increased understanding and awareness must manifest itself in our efforts to prevent this slide into socialism encouraged by the current Democratic administration and revenge seekers.